Today on The Report, we discuss the new possibility of a vaccine for treating cancer.
Plus, the opening of Biden's student loan forgiveness program and the 4 dismembered bodies found in Oklahoma River.
Concerns of a fatal flaw in Tesla's autopilot function, and the Purdue University student charged with murdering his roommate. The Report starts now.
Hello, I'm Anthony Bautista.
I'm Amanda Nemec.
And I'm Enrique Medina. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Report CSUF or on our Titan TV Instagram at Titan TV CSUF to keep in touch with us and view our new content.
Could a vaccine to treat cancer actually be possible? BioNTech founders say yes. In a recent interview, BioNTech has stated that their COVID vaccine technology could be repurposed to potentially help destroy cancer cells before the end of the decade. BioNTech co-founders Ugur Sahin and Özlem Türeci have proved themselves in the medical field by creating one of the most successful COVID vaccines during the pandemic. The German married duo had partnered with Pfizer to manufacture a revolutionary mRNA COVID vaccine, and their achievement has opened the door to creating potential cancer vaccines in the coming years. The mRNA COVID vaccine works by churning out certain harmless spike proteins, and then these proteins are used to inform the immune system's defenses of what to search for. Once identified, the body can then properly start its counterattack on these harmful viruses. BioNTech is fairly confident that the same method can be repurposed to seek out and destroy cancer cells instead. The German firm had been working on this medical breakthrough before the pandemic struck, at which point they were forced to refocus their studies to produce COVID vaccines. However, their success in providing COVID vaccines has reportedly led to a better understanding of how people's immune systems respond to mRNA. There are obviously a number of hurdles that lie ahead in this bold medical venture, but they now have several cancer vaccines in the clinical trial stage. Türeci remained both cautious and realistic about the work, stating, quote, "As scientists, we are always hesitant to say we will have a cure for cancer. We have a number of breakthroughs, and we will continue to work on them," end quote. So, do you guys think a vaccine for cancer could actually be viable by the year 2030?
Yeah, so I do really think that with the help of mRNA technology, I do think that a cancer vaccine could actually be here by the year 2030. And I think the COVID vaccines in particular took a huge role in that being possible, because we know mRNA technology is one of the main aspects of the COVID vaccines. And with essentially the information that we know from COVID, that information we could use to accelerate the process to find out more information and to potentially get to a cancer vaccine by the year 2030. Just to give more of a sense of what mRNA technology is, it's essentially, to kind of put it into an analogy, it's like a goalie in soccer. So essentially, the mRNA technology is blocking off potential harmful viruses, any potential harmful cells that are there in the first place, potential harmful cancer cells. So it's acting as like a defense mechanism to help block that.
I think it's also cool to note that, again, in time over history, we see this pattern of creating a vaccine for one virus that tends to help, our current other viruses that we don't have a cure for. So it's really cool to see that. Just, sadly, COVID, we are making groundbreaking news about cancer and a potential cure, almost essentially. So, what would this medical breakthrough, you think, mean for the world today?
I think this means everything to a lot of people. I know that cancer has affected numerous families, numerous communities. So I know that this is huge, but at the same time, we have to remember that the advances with medical technology, while they are quick, they do take time. We do have to run all these medical tests. We have to make sure that there's no super bad side effects or anything like that. So while 2030 is a good year to look forward to, I wouldn't stamp it as official quite yet.
Yes, and something to also add on top of that, of course, it's a long process, but another question that pops up into my mind is, as far as its availability, how available will it be for the public? Will it be cheap enough for people to be able to access the vaccine? Will people with insurance be able to actually access it? So that's another question for me that kind of arises when it comes to this. I'm pretty sure it could be ready by 2030, but also once it's available, how available will it truly be? And I hope it really is available for as many people as possible.
President Biden has formally opened the applications for student loan forgiveness. Biden announced in August his decision to cancel up to $10,000 in student loan debt for individuals making less than $125,000 a year. This program is expected to provide debt relief to as many as 43 million borrowers. Individuals who wish to apply for the student debt relief may begin filling out forms through studentaid.gov. The forms are available in English or Spanish and require applicants to provide their full name, social security number, date of birth, and contact details. To qualify, borrowers must have federally held student loans. The form includes further information on the debt relief, who else qualifies, and how it works. Borrowers have until December 31st, 2023 to submit an application. A beta version of the website has launched recently and was said to have over 8 million Americans use the site to fill out their applications. Biden stated, quote, "As millions of people fill out the application, we're going to make sure the system continues to work as smoothly as possible so that we can deliver student loan relief for millions of Americans as quickly and efficiently as possible," end quote. The Department of Education is facing multiple lawsuits following the new student loan forgiveness policy, and a U.S. district judge may decide to temporarily block the program from taking effect until they issue a final ruling on the case. However, Biden believes that the administrative plan will hold up in court. So what do you guys think of this new policy? Is it going to be enough for all of the students, all of the college students that need this? Can the U.S. provide this for everybody? Is it enough?
Yeah, and just to put this into perspective, so the cost of college, we know that way back in the 60s and 70s, it was very cheap. But just to kind of give perspective on how expensive college is now, data shows that the cost of going to college here in the United States has actually nearly tripled over the last 4 decades. Wow. So that's pretty crazy. Also, as far as this new plan is concerned, the student loans, it's $10,000 that we're talking about here, and it would completely wipe out balances of up to 29% of those people who have student debt. So 29% isn't a huge percentage, but it's showing it's working. So I guess in that sense, obviously from maybe a con side of this, some people will say that, hey, you're wasting too much money on student loan forgiveness, but at the same time, it's helping out 29%. So is it really that much money that's going into it?
Right, and while 29% might seem relatively small, we have to remember that this 43 million Americans qualify for this.
Yes.
So 29% of 43 million is still a high amount of people.
Yes.
That's a lot of people that are going to be affected by this. For the people that have been going through school and then they got struck with the pandemic, this is probably the best news you can hear. $10,000 you don't have to worry about after going through all that.
Definitely.
The first generation students that have struggled, that had to go through college on their own, not knowing anything. So this is a step in the right direction.
Oh yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And I'm glad you bring up, minorities, because a lot of the times those are the people who are hit the most from student loans, and, people who go out of state and people who go to private schools. So I totally agree. It's a step in the right direction. And although there is some cons that people might think about, I think ultimately this is a positive thing both for students and for anybody who wants to go to college in the future.
Although this is a great idea, we have to look at the other side of the situation where those college students in the past that have, maybe struggled and worked really hard to pay off most of their debt.
Yeah, and that's something we really don't think about, but you're 100% right. 4 dismembered bodies have been pulled from an Oklahoma river. 4 male motorcyclists living in Okmulgee, Oklahoma had mysteriously vanished on October 9th. Mark Chastain, Billy Chastain, Mike Sparks, and Alex Stevens reportedly left Billy Chastain's residence around 9 p.m. and never made it back home to their families. Unfortunately, their bodies were pulled from a river and positively identified after a passerby reported seeing something suspicious. In a news conference on October 17th, Okmulgee Police Chief Joe Prentice stated, quote, "Although the cause and manner of death is still pending, each victim suffered gunshot wounds. All 4 bodies were dismembered before being placed in the river, and that is what caused difficulty in determining identities," end quote. After investigation, the men in question were suspected to be out in order to commit some sort of criminal act, but instead became the victims of something far more sinister. A witness told investigators that the 4 men had been invited to join and to, quote, "hit a lick big enough for all of them," end quote. Police have yet to uncover what they were planning or where they planned to do it, but after searching a nearby scrapyard, they discovered evidence that some sort of violent event had taken place. A person of interest is under suspicion and has also gone missing, but no charges have been filed thus far. Families of the victims were obviously taken aback by the brutality involved in their deaths of their loved ones, and Police Chief Prentice commented, quote, "I've worked over 80 murders in my career, murders involving multiple people. I have worked dismemberments, but this case involved the highest number of victims, and it's a very violent event," end quote. The Oklahoma police force is hard at work in order to make more sense of the tragic scenario, and we hope to learn more soon regarding the events that led to the murder of these 4 men.
The safety of Tesla's autopilot function is now under question. The system's ability to operate safely is up in the air after more malfunctions have been reported this last year. During a 51-day span this summer, 3 fatal crashes occurred under similar circumstances. The common factor, autopilot is experiencing a difficulty in its detection of motorcycle riders, which may pose a significant obstacle in continuing to make the function available to the public. Details surrounding the 3rd motorcycle accident have recently surfaced. On August 26th in Palm Beach County, Florida, an impaired driver relying on autopilot made impact with the back of a woman's motorcycle, throwing her forcefully onto the windshield. The tragic death of the motorcyclist, identified as an Ingrid Ava Noon, suggests the autopilot system is insufficient. These crashes renew questions about whether users of the autopilot system remain engaged while driving and therefore prepared to fully take control of the vehicle when necessary. Research has shown that many drivers glance away from the road more frequently when using autopilot, with the belief that their cars can simply drive themselves. Even though the autopilot system keeps the vehicle in its lane while maintaining set speed, drivers are still instructed to keep their hands on the steering wheel at all times. The car even reminds them to do so when it detects otherwise. However, Tesla's system still lulls some drivers into a sense of complacency and inattentiveness, which is a major concern for public safety. Eric Stein, an advocate for motorcycle riders, commented, quote, "If it can't see a motorcycle, can it see a pedestrian? Can it see a small child? Can it see an animal?" End quote. The CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk, has yet to speak out regarding the matter. So do we think that autopilot is such a good idea? What are your thoughts?
In theory, yes. But when actually put into practice, I don't think so. I mean, we've seen it. People have just been careless, too reliant on this feature. And while, yes, it is a great idea, I don't think we're quite ready as a society. I don't think the technology is quite ready. But it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I do think it is a step in the right direction, and I think it really just all depends on the driver, because something we need to realize with this technology is essentially you have a second pair of eyes. It's the autopilot system and yourself, so you have 2 people you can actually rely on as far as driving is concerned. But there's also that aspect that you mentioned, that people do get lazy and don't really focus when it's essentially doing the driving for them, and that's where the risk comes in. How safe is it? How safe is it to have it widely available for the public? I personally do think that they will continue to develop it, and I do think if we want to actually present this out more to the public, they have to fix issues such as that with the motorcyclists and that with pedestrians, because that's another huge issue. That's something big. That's something very big. We don't want more accidents to happen.
I think too, with the younger generation, when they hear autopilot, they think, oh, okay, the car is driving itself. And we need to think, yes, the car may be in control most of the time. At the end of the day, it's our duty to be aware of the situation and at least have eyes at all times.
I agree. And you mentioned that one of the accidents took place while the driver was impaired. That driver should not have gotten in the car at all. If we're being honest, Teslas aren't cheap. So if you can afford a Tesla, you can afford an Uber. You shouldn't get in a car impaired, whether that car can drive itself or not.
And that shouldn't be an excuse. Oh, my car can drive, I can drink. It's still illegal to drink and drive. You're still getting in a car. You're still making that choice to do that.
At the end of the day, people need to be aware of their own decisions. What they do can affect other people, and it can hurt other people, regardless of whether their car can drive itself or not. People just need to be more responsible. On October 13th, a 22-year-old Purdue University student named Jin-Min Shah was charged with murdering his roommate, Varun Manish Chahida, age 20. Min Shah allegedly stabbed Chahida with a knife in the early hours of Wednesday, October 5th. Min Shah called the police around 12:44 a.m. that day, stating he had killed his roommate, according to a probable cause affidavit filed on Thursday, October 13th. The Purdue junior was arrested and prosecutors requested that he was held without bond. Chahida died from multiple sharp force trauma injuries to his head and neck, according to the preliminary autopsy detailed in the affidavit. The attack occurred in the student's shared room on the first floor of McCutcheon Hall, an all-male residence hall with 730 people on the West Lafayette, Indiana campus. When the officers arrived on the scene that morning of October 5th, they found the suspect, Min Shah, with what looked like blood on his clothes and body, and a folding knife on the ground. One officer identified, quote, an apparent blood spatter on the wall and a pool of blood on the floor, end quote. When the medics arrived, they confirmed that Chahida was dead. Purdue University Police Chief Leslie Wheat called the attack, quote, unprovoked and senseless, end quote. Several students living in the building expressed concern that they weren't alerted about the killing until hours later. Police said that the school didn't issue an alert to students because Shah was in custody within minutes of the 911 call. According to Purdue University, the killing was the first on-campus homicide since January 2014. The president of the university, Mitch Daniels, shared the news in a letter to the campus community on October 5th, calling the incident a tragedy and offering resources for the students. So now I'll ask you guys, what do you guys think about how Purdue University handled this situation?
Yeah, and this is very concerning for me, this aspect of it. The fact that police and the authorities didn't alarm their students right away. A lot of these students didn't find out about what had occurred until hours later, maybe even the next day. So to me, that's where the big question comes. That's just very alarming. I know myself as a student would be very, very mad about that situation if I knew that I didn't get some sort of alert about that, because you never know if he would have ran off and maybe tried to kill other students or just be a lunatic and do you know what. And yeah, I think that's where the big question comes about. And I mean, I know he was in custody, which was their reasoning for not alarming the students, but still, considering what happened, you have to alarm them no matter what.
Especially since that's a very prevalent thing, I feel like, for campus safety and security. We do have these alerts for a reason, and we do get them right away when something happens. So it's kind of shocking to see that even though, yeah, like you said, they were in custody, they didn't do that.
Right, and I feel for the parents that have sent their kids to this school. They might be worried sick about them, and then to hear this and that they didn't even know about it, and so maybe they saw it on the news or they saw it on something else. That's very concerning. That's very, very worrisome for students, parents, everyone involved. I think Purdue definitely dropped the ball on this one.
Here's a question. What do you guys think about the guy that murdered this kid? He was the one that called 911.
Yeah, that's a very...
The murderer usually doesn't call 911. What are your thoughts? Do you think there was an accident? Did they really say?
I don't know, maybe he was just acting on emotion and maybe just realizing what he did, and maybe that was just his first natural instinct. That is a little strange, but yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting one.
It's very unusual, and I think ultimately the only person that knows the true answer to that question is the suspect himself.
Yeah, in this whole situation, ultimately, I hope Purdue University can actually give resources to its students and actually do things like offer counseling, therapy sessions, things like that, because after an event like this, it could be traumatizing for a lot of students. A lot of students can be very afraid and scared to go back to their dorms, and I understand why. So I really hope Purdue University helps them in the best way possible. This fall, a wellness room has been added to CSUF's Counseling and Psychological Service, or CAPS, where it aims to promote support groups and provide free resources. The wellness room offer extended services like yoga sessions, as well as napping pods and massage chairs. Wellness room ambassador and psychology major Kelsey LeClaire said, quote, "I think it is so beneficial because it is a space where students can solely focus on their mental health." End quote. CAPS offers specific services like individual therapy, group therapy, psychiatry medication, and crisis counseling. The center also provides therapy sessions that focus on building self-esteem and confidence, and LGBTQ support groups. They occasionally offer additional services like dog therapy, where students can interact with dogs as a way to help relieve stress. CAPS has a wellness platform called You at Fullerton that students can use to receive personalized support in the form of articles and videos. CAPS and the Wellness Room are located in room 1334 on the 3rd floor at Titan Hall.
And with that, that's all we have time for today.
Have a good week, everyone, and stay tuned for more views, news, and info.
We'll see you next time on The Report.